Hi, everyone. Welcome and good evening. Just give us a couple of minutes and we will start in exactly 2 minutes' time. Thank you. All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for attending yet another session by the Gujarati Association Wilayah Persekutuan and Selangor's Business Development Subcommittee. Today, we have an exceptional speaker that's going to be with us, and the topic of our discussion is how do you drive exponential business growth with the application of organizational psychology? As some of you may be aware, this committee was formed through an initiative of the management committee of Gujarati Association Wilayah Persekutuan and Selangor, through the leadership Dr. Bhupat Rai Shah, who had a vision of making sure that the Gujarati community not only participates in religious events, social events, cultural events, but also spend some time in bringing the core of what our community is well known for, which is entrepreneurship. So before we call our speaker, please allow me to welcome the president of Gujarati Association, Wilayah Persekutuan and Selangor, Dato Bhupat Rai Shah, to say a couple of opening remarks. Dato, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sanjay Bhai. Sanjay Bhai, you very beautifully sort of expressed what our vision is. And today we are gathered, I think, on a third occasion of this business development session to share views with our community, which is known historically and currently also, a well-rounded, successful business community. Jai Jinendra, Jai Shri Krishna, and I must say we are truly blessed. Today, we have our guest speaker, an internationally acclaimed, award-winning organizational psychologist, our own Hetal Doshi. Together with that, we are also blessed to have Mr. Sanjay Bhai Bhavishi to moderate and anchor this event. Sanjay Bhavishi himself is also a very successful entrepreneur. And I'm sure today he will help us to bring out the nuggets of what organizational psychologists can offer the corporates today. We're all very familiar with organizations' growth. Essentially, we're talking about vision, objective, sales growth. We have profits, reducing costs. Those are the normal indicators. But with human resources being the most important resource, I think the hour of the need is how can we actually make sure that this very precious resource gets an environment to give their best. I look forward to a very insightful session today. And with those words, once again, I must thank our anchor, Mr. Sanjay Babavishi, for giving me this honor and privilege to say a few words. Thank you. God bless all.
Thank you very much, Dato. So before we start, I want you to know that no event is successful without a team, and there's a team that is here to ensure that we bring the best for you. The two members of this team that are assisting me right now is Amish Avlani and Ketan Gandhi, who are right here behind the screens. And I would like all participants to know that we encourage you to ask your questions. So Amish Bhai is actually watching all the questions that you raise. And as I speak with the speaker and as I spar and I engage the speaker, right, to give the speaker a tough time, Amish Bhai is there ready to take your questions, right? We are very privileged because today we have our very own. And Hetal Doshi is an organizational psychologist that actually has advised billion-dollar companies. So in this session, I want to try to dive deep to talk about the concept of organizational psychology. How do you drive exponential business growth? Not just business growth, but how do you drive exponential business growth? And we're going to do our best. But we need your help. We'll ask all participants to feel free. Shoot your questions. And Amish and Ketan are right there, ready to take your questions. And at appropriate time, we will be bringing your questions to our speaker. So first of all, Hetal, I want to welcome you on behalf of the entire Samaj. We're truly proud of you. You're our very own, and you have really, been very successful. And you're successful in a pretty technical area called organizational psychology.
Yeah,
So,
thank you so much for
first of
having
all,
me.
welcome.
Thank you. I'm so
Thank you. That's
excited.
great.
Sorry?
That's great. And you are in Bintulu, and yet you are spending this 1 hour with us, and we truly appreciate it.
I did. I got in the earliest flight this morning to make sure my room was all set up. So I hope it looks really nice in the background.
Thank you. Thank you, Hetal. So let's start first, Hetal. The first part, let's talk a little bit about your background, right? Organizational psychology sounds like a big, concept, but, talk to us a little bit about your tertiary education. How did you get into this? I understand that you actually graduated from a university, and then at some point you ended up in Australia. Let's talk a little bit about your background and how did this entire opportunity come about?
Sure. I'm just going to flash up a little bit so that it's kind of easy to understand as we're going along. I hope this is helpful. So I'm Hetal, and I'm an organizational psychologist. It is the coolest job in the world. I think just before we go forward, I'm just wondering how many of you actually feel like you have the coolest job in the world? It is just one of the most amazing professions that anyone could ever be in. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life, and an absolute rebel when I was a bit younger. So I think my dad probably got a little bit annoyed with me at one point and said, "You better sort your stuff out." Locked me in a room, gave me a British Council guide book that has all the professions in the world, starting from A to Z. And he was like, "You sit in there until you figure out what you want." And the exercise, I think, is pretty healthy exercise, a helpful exercise, was to cross out everything that I didn't want to do because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And by the time I was done, I came up with two, which was psychology and accounting. And my dad was like, "How do you make decisions? One is all about people, and the other is all about numbers." And at that point in time, he was like, "Yeah, definitely more a people person." And he's like, "Yeah, maybe try and go for psychology." And thank God I'm female, because imagine if a guy at that point, I think that was like 2003 or something, decides to be a psychologist, that might not have happened. So I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I'm pretty grateful that I chanced across this word called psychology at one point in time in a book. And that's how it started.
Fantastic. And yeah, and so after your graduation, right, you did your postgraduate, right? And talk to us a little bit about your first job, and how did you actually practice the science that you actually graduated from?
Yeah. So I think when most people think about psychology, they probably think about the ill health part of things, right? Like depression, stress, anxiety. But what got me thinking about organizational psychology was, I think as Gujaratis, I'm not saying that we don't experience ill health. Obviously, all of us do. But a lot of our growing up conversations are around business. My Gujarati is really bad, but it's like, what dhando are you in? These are the typical questions that they would ask. You'd have table talk conversations about business. So when it came to psychology, and there was a module called organizational psychology or business psychology, I got really excited. Went to Australia after I completed National University of Singapore, and I was very, very lucky. Parents who are thinking of sending their kids abroad, the best thing you could do is send them for practical experiences. So my university had a lot of practical experiences. But what was most interesting was when I left my master's program and I joined my first company called Challenge Consulting. I thought, wow, organizational psychology, all the fun bits, all about performance. But that was in 2008. And my first job was to actually get people out of their jobs, which was horrifying. So literally going into organizations and telling people that their job positions were no longer available and that their belongings were outside of the organization, and we would then meet them outside of the organization. That was my first week at work. Yeah.
Okay, so that's that doesn't sound like a fun job, right? I saw a movie, Up in the Air, and when you try to get rid of people from the jobs, I mean, you're talking about human lives. There are people with children. There are people with with salaries. That actually the entire family depends on. And here you are, a fresh graduate, turning up at your challenger organization with a
Yeah.
challenge, and you
Yeah.
are there to tell people that you're essentially fired. I mean, that must be a very tough job. I mean, I cannot imagine. I mean, firing people, even as a CEO, one of the toughest thing I got to do is when I got to, remove people from my organization for whatever reason. So, I mean, doing that as a living, that
Yeah.
must be a very difficult thing. So, share with us a little bit about the kind of experiences that you went through. Give us some of the toughest so-called removal that you had to do.
Sure. So as organizational psychology, it's almost like a human being, right? With life, inevitably, there is death as well. So an organizational goes through cycles, and the organizational psychology, the definition of it is the spirit of an organization. It's the spiritedness. Psychology is psyche. And it goes through a cycle, and therefore at one point it dies in order to be reborn. And when it dies a little bit, you have an exodus as well. So at that point in time, I remember one of the most horrible cases that we had, which actually ended up being one of the most beautiful journeys. And I'm still in contact with a lot of people from that 2008 experience. So what happened was, we had one guy who had 3 kids and one more on the way. And when we made the announcement, he was obviously livid and shocked, but he kept full composure, as men often do. They're like, yep, I'm okay, I got this. Interestingly, he still woke up every day, even though that was his last day. He woke up every single day wearing his business outfit, pretending to go to work because his wife was pregnant with the 4th one. And the wife still thought he was going to work. And he only ever told her about it years later, after he had gotten another job, which was maybe about 2-3 months after that. And he went through all of that pain on his own. But yeah, that was a really horrifying experience. But the most amazing thing that came out of this particular incident of having to go through almost about 2 years of exiting employees was that at the end of that experience, everybody was okay anyway. No matter how much people think you can't cope and that it's game over, majority of the time people end up thinking that the worst scenarios in their life ended up being one of the best moments of their lifetime and sets them up for success as well. But it's not all bad, Sanjay. Like I have my other jobs are really, really fun. The kind of stuff that we do is also really fun. But it was just really
Sure.
shocking that this is my first experience. Yeah.
But let's dive a little bit more deeper here, right? Every attendee that's on the session, those that are CEOs, those are managers, have, I'm sure, at some point in their life had to fire people, right? Sometimes performance, sometimes breach of contractual obligations. I mean, various reasons, right? What, in your opinion, as an organizational psychologist, without being idealistic, if I may add, right? Because if you look at large organizations, they have these very high standards of the way a termination of employment should happen. But a small business or a medium-sized business might not be able to meet the same standard.
Yeah.
Now, as an organizational psychologist, like think about it from the Gujarati community perspective. We've got workforce around us, and sometimes things don't go right, right?
Yeah.
And as the leader, you probably know that look, things are not going right, it's going to go south. What, in your opinion, because I assume you've done this hundreds of times, as an organizational psychologist, what would be your best practices that you would recommend that we, the business leaders, should think about, and the way we should actually do this so it doesn't bite the organization back?
Yeah. I think we'll just take one step back. Just to be clear, organizational psychology is a whole broad spectrum, right? From like growth to exodus and beyond, right? So there's a whole series of things. We're just speaking about one part of it right now. And just before I get into organizations, I'd just like to play a little bit, okay? What do you think is the most stressful life event that anybody could go through? Just a quick question to anyone. And this doesn't mean
All right.
business, it's life event, right? Because even being terminated or exiting your organization is a life event. So what do you think is the most, a death? Okay, thanks. I'm seeing Navia Avlani. Death is the most horrific thing of a family member. Yep, absolutely. That's actually number two. Death of a family member or death of a loved one is actually the second most painful, stressful life event. So guess what is the first one?
Rejection.
Interesting, very close, very close. The first one is betrayal. So I'll just do a small little segue for a little while before I get into this. So imagine that you found out that your loved one, so this actually happened in Singapore. So imagine that you found out that your husband has passed away, and you turn up on site and you realize that he's in the car with the mistress. So you're really, really upset about the death of a loved one, but you're even more livid about betrayal. So coming back to, so you rather that they die than they betray you. That's basically what psychology tells you about human behavior. And that's why you get a lot of, what do you call it? Love-related murders and stuff like that. Okay, that's separate. Coming back to this, when it comes to exiting an organization, the major concern for most people is betrayal. It's not really the fact that that I'm exiting the company or that you're firing me. It's that feeling that you and I had a relationship and now you're betraying me. Everything that I've done for you, but all that is left back in return is a moment's worth of your decision, and that's that. So my recommendation when it comes to humane, that's the correct word, humane downsizing, and we had to do this actually for close to about 6,000 employees in one of the largest airline companies in Malaysia, which you probably know which one it is. We called it What's Your Next? So we did it as quickly as possible, but we called it What's Your Next? And in this particular, if I could share, in this particular scenario, in this particular airlines company that you have about 6,000 people that you're exiting all at the same time, mind you, again, that's not the only thing that we do. We do a lot of other amazing stuff. But in that particular experience, we actually got people to talk about what their next was based out of wisdom. So, we've had an airline company in Malaysia, I think all of us know which one, that they had 2 crashes before they had major downsizing exercise. At that point in time, one of the things that we tried to do when we were called in to support that movement was to have a conversation with people. And what we realized was that there were a lot of people who had a lot of great wisdom and a lot of deep understanding. One of them was this couple who had one of their child, a daughter, pass away in one of the crashes. And during a conversation with that person, they said that we understand that the airline is going through so much of pain, but we are so grateful for all of the opportunities. And despite the fact that our child died in that crash, that was always a dream. And we found people who already had a way of being able to think about their next in such a wise manner, rather than a fear-based manner, in such a wise manner, that we often started getting them to share stories about, this is not something that the organization wants to do. We love everybody who's been here. We do not want anyone to feel betrayed. What do you think we can do from here? And with that, the stories kind of shaped the movement going forward. Some people said that they wanted money for setting up their own company. Some people wanted, at that point in time, they wanted a little bit of help with regards to getting licenses to become Uber drivers. So different people wanted different pathways, and they negotiated what they wanted with the organization. And that became a really wonderful way to move forward. Yeah, so I thought it was pretty beautiful, and in the worst way possible, obviously. Yeah.
Interesting. So just diving in deeper, and in a minute we're going to go into the topic of growth. But again, to all of the audience, if anyone has a question, right, all questions are intelligent questions, please type so that our moderators are able to field your questions to our to our speaker for today. But hey, let's dive a little bit deeper, right? Because what you talked about was, and I'm just on a topic of basically a humane way of terminating employment, right? But there are two parts to this. There's one part that that I'm alluding to, a VSS, where you're doing a reduction in workforce. But there's another part where you're actually doing a reduction of employment or termination of employment because of performance issues. So I really like the word that you say, the word betrayal, right? When as leaders, as CEOs, the first takeaway that I'm getting from you is that when you are terminating employment, just make sure that the opposite party understands this is not a betrayal by the company to the individual. Therefore, I'm drawing a deduction that the purpose of that termination becomes very important, right? And therefore, I assume by deduction, you'd probably agree with me that regular performance appraisal is very important. Whereas most CEOs, around just take it for granted, right? They just believe that, oh, okay, we'll just hire somebody in a kamamuki there way, in a they have to work very hard, and we'll pay them the money and they owe us a living. But this thinking of leadership, when you run a company, that why is performance appraisal important? Because you want to avoid the ultimate betrayal feeling at the end, so that a team member or an employee understands where their performance is. Would you agree with that encapsulation of that principle from the way I'm explaining it?
Yeah, spot on. Really good, really good reframing, actually. You're reframing not just exiting because of the status of the state of the organization, but exiting because of the state of the employee, and that feeling of betrayal. One other thing that comes in, actually, apart from betrayal, which is very interesting, because when you are appraised, right? Imagine if you're a husband being appraised by your wife and vice versa.
Oh, we get it every day. Every husband will tell you that we get appraised. We get feedback all the time. I can assure you that.
Yeah. So if the appraisal goes according to what you want, then it's all good, because that's what you wanted and it's fair and it's amazing. Majority of the time, though, there's, like, say, for example, when we work with organizations like Petronas, there's 47,000 of them. Not everyone is going to be appraised towards what it is that they want. You're going to get at least 95% of people getting below that 5%, and therefore maybe not getting promoted, not getting better pay, better bonus, or whatever not. So is, in essence, you're not going to get what you want. And when I get appraised in a way, so Sanjay, maybe you can help me out here. When you get appraised by your wife and it's not in a way that you want, then what would you say?
Well, first of all, she doesn't praise me. Okay, I'm just joking. But
Appraise,
yeah,
appraise, appraise, not
appraise.
praise.
I know. I'm just messing with you. Yeah. Well, I would probably voice out and I say that's a very unfair appraisal,
Correct.
right? This
Absolutely.
is not right. I'm going to
Correct.
communicate it back.
Yeah. So the word is unfair. And interestingly, when we did a study in Malaysia, out of the top 4 risks, one of it is called organizational injustice and disrespect, which is unfairness. I feel unfairly treated. And so I have a question for everyone, because this is a human phenomena. We are talking about performance appraisal, but it's a very common phenomena in the workplace. So this question that I have for anyone, but I suppose because Sanjay, you're not muted, so maybe you
The
can
only guy
answer.
with the mic.
Like, do you have a favorite child?
No. I mean, I very consciously don't have one.
Okay.
Because I've educated myself from the start that all are equal, and I want to make sure. My brother is my mother's favorite, if I may say. So I'd want to do that to my kids.
So that's the interesting bit, right? That's where it's super interesting, the human phenomena, that I do not have any favorites, but my parents have a favorite. So
Right.
that
But he's my favorite too. So
so that is called unconscious bias, right? Like, that we always feel other people may have that prejudice and that they might practice favoritism, but we don't. But the reality is that all of us do. And we all have a favorite. And our favorite basically is only for one reason. They are our favorite because they give us what it is that we want.
That's
And
right.
in the way that we like it, right? So therefore they become our favorite. And the same thing with performance appraisal as well. Sooner or later, when we feed into the standards as to what we tell a person. So for example, if I keep saying, oh, you're doing a really good job, I like the way that you're doing it, that person feeds and becomes more and more of that. Whereas everybody else can sense that they are not that top dog, and sooner or later, they experience organizational injustice and disrespect, meaning I feel unfair. So it is not necessarily betrayal, it is unfairness, and it comes to social comparison. So when it comes to performance appraisal, comparison becomes a huge thing that you cannot run away from. And so data-drivenness becomes very, very important, but data-drivenness goes completely out of whack.
That's another topic. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you're still a human being at the end of the day as well. So yeah, performance
Right.
appraisals are really, really tough one. It is probably one of the biggest concerns in organizations, because once you get appraised in a way that labels you, you end up rising to that standard, or you get really angry and you use the anger to try to get better. But that leaves a little bit of toxicity around as well.
Makes sense. So I'm going to now dive into the other part, which is growth, which is what we're here to talk about, right? But there's so many things to talk about just from the appraisal part. So to the CEOs that are on this call, to the entrepreneurs that are on this call, I think the key take back from what our speaker is saying today is that you want to avoid the feeling of betrayal of your teammates at any point in time. As we say within the Gujarati community, don't burn bridges behind you. You never know when you need them. So it's always conventional wisdom to do that. And at the same time, having some kind of a appraisal system, a two-way communication system, I think it's very important for entrepreneurs, especially so you can create a level playing field and have a team that is actually communicating well. But now, Hetal, let's dive to the part of organizational psychology. There is companies that are billion-dollar companies, right? Whether you look at Microsoft, at least my industry, tech, Microsoft, look at Tesla, you look at Airbnb, you look at any of these large companies, right? They grow so quickly. And and there are entrepreneurs that are here on this call that will tell you that, wow, the actual challenge on the ground is tremendous, because an entrepreneur will come up with an idea, we come up with a seed capital, we'll actually go out, and do some kind of a test of our business idea, and then we grow and we grow and we grow and we grow organically, traditionally within the Gujarati community, right? And so let's talk a little bit about the butterfly effect, right? Let's dive a little bit into the subject matter. How do these large corporations actually grow exponentially, right? And what is it that they do that we can learn from and we can apply, right, to ourselves? So, can you share with us, without being too technical, trying to keep it high level and light, so that our audience can actually understand? But what are the things that they are doing that they're getting this growth, and here we are slogging, all the time, and we're having challenges.
Mm. Wow. Okay. All right. So tough one, huh? But let's
I
try.
told you I'll
Let's
give you
try.
a tough time. I told you I'll give you a tough time.
Okay. So
Yeah.
what I love about butterfly effect. So butterfly effect is basically our philosophy as to how to approach organizational psychology or even growth or transformation. This is applicable to a child, somebody who works at home, somebody who works in the office, some entrepreneur. It's applicable to anybody. Butterfly effect is essentially the smallest little thing that you do, caterpillar to butterfly, that could lead to massive, massive differences. So what I'd like to focus on today is not necessarily, when you think about business growth, it's so big, but actually let's kind of narrow down to the fact that you only can scale at that level by focusing on the small little levers that you put in place. So maybe let's use examples. And maybe I will just play a little bit with you as well, if that's okay. So Sanjay, you've achieved massive business growth, right? Massive, massive business growth. You're like, you're hitting the dreams of a lot of us. But I don't think it's the big things that you've done. Would you tell us like the smallest thing that you think that has contributed to this mega big thing that you're doing today?
I would say probably ideation, solve a very large problem, right? So find a problem and make sure the problem is large enough. That entire world. I was never focused on a problem that is by a community or a city or a country, but a global problem, right? So I was very focused on solving global. So I would say there's one. I would say number two is incubation, right? Being able to come up with an idea and incubate the idea, test the idea, and make sure that there's some teeth to the idea. And then I think it's all about team. Bringing in a group of very talented individuals that are smart and build a culture that's uniform across where we are able to tell our entire story. So have a very mission-led, a very purpose-led organization that everybody would understand what you stand for, what you're trying to do, and what problem you're trying to solve, and bring in as many intelligent people as you can to solve the problem. And every day you become better at it. That's kind of how I'm thinking about this.
Yeah, the way that you play your game is based on solving problems that are much larger than life and keeps you perpetuating the game. You want to keep playing this game for a long time. So let me just share with
That's
you a
right.
small little story, if I can. And there are so many of these moments in every single person's life over here. I think the question that I have for everyone is, what is the smallest little thing that whenever you were going through a problem, the smallest little thing that happened to you that actually helped you to break out and get what you want? I think it's a very important question for everyone to answer, because every single person has so many of these stories that you don't even realize that you have. Your whole body is full of these stories. So I'll give you a small little one, but this is how organizational psychology can work in reality, okay? So we're working with a $1 billion a genius in Malaysia right now. He flies his own jet, and he's interestingly amazing at the same time, like super humble guy. I genuinely have mad respect for this person. This person, unfortunately, is not able to get to the butterfly. He's very, very successful in what it is that he wants, but not able to achieve the next level of his growth. And the next level of his growth is to go global. So he's achieved his billion over here, but he's not able to go global. For some reason, he's just stuck over here. And he keeps on investing in a lot of dying startups in Malaysia. So startups that are slowly, slowly dying. He's like, he does. And when I spoke with him, he kept using the word rescue. I need to keep rescuing. And so when we had this conversation, what we realized was that he had been very successful in solving problems because he was good at rescuing things. But this wasn't going to help him to become global anymore. He had hit a point where all he was doing was rescuing rather than growing and building. So we had a conversation, and this is where organizational psychology becomes extremely powerful. When we hear somebody, I think we hear very differently from most people. And we call it the cesarean. So, when you try to have moms, you would know, right? When you have a cesarean, the doctor cuts at least 7 layers of skin before you can get to the baby, right? A lot of people would just say, oh, come on, just do it, and that's it, right? Or if someone's really depressed about something, you're like, no, I see the best in you, you're a shining star. But that's not what the person is saying. So when I listened a little bit, and it was just about half an hour, and this is why we get, this is not a pitch about how much money we make, but we're designed to be able to do things in a very, very, very short period of time. We don't have much time. So this isn't about half an hour. So I had a conversation with him, and I said, where is this rescue word coming from? You've used it 5 times. And he said, I don't know. I just rescue, and some of the startups that he's rescued in Malaysia are startups that all of you would know about, and you're probably using it as well. So very famous startups, but they're not making money. So we had a question around this word. Where is this word rescue coming from? Exponential growth means exponential growth from inside, exponential growth outside, exponential growth inside. So we really had to open up the system from inside, like cesarean, yeah? Do a lot of breathing, and in a very short period of time, just ask him to close his eyes and ask him, from the day that he was born up until today, when did he hear the word rescue first? Long story short, it ended up being that he had realized that he's the 3rd child and the only one that was alive. His oldest sibling had died in the womb. The second one had died from stillbirth. And he was the only one that was the impossible child that was born. And his whole life, he had this guilt that he was the lucky one and that his 2 siblings were not rescued. And so subconsciously, everything that he was doing was based on this narrative that he was the lucky one who was able to achieve all these impossibilities, but he felt guilty that he was never able to rescue it. So butterfly effect is that small little thing that you may have heard when you were young, or that you may have planted as a seed, that holds you back. But if you unleash it, and if you really deeply understand where that comes from, maybe you can get the butterfly. But for him, he didn't realize that that's what was locking him back. So
let's dive. Yeah. So we have 20 more minutes, but there's so much to cover. So I'm going to jumpstart with keywords here, right? We talk about purpose-led organizations. We talk about, the organization psychology being the spirit of the organization. And what you're trying to do is really get them out from a state of a cocoon to a butterfly. And butterfly is a successful state. And the cocoon is a state where an entrepreneur is kind of tied up, right? As an organizational psychologist, let's forget this billion-dollar organization. Let's talk about our organizations within the community. And you and I talked about this, right? We have multiple restaurants. By the way, to the audience, if anybody wants to volunteer your business, just type I. Amish is going to take a look at you, and and we will use your and just state what business you are in, and we'll use you as an example. So we have got the food and the restaurant industries, right? There are so many vegetarian restaurants belonging to our community members that are out there, right? There's Ganga's, there's WTF, Mr. Naan, there is the Bombay talkies that's out there, at least 3 that I know, and there are many more, right, out there. Talk about the implementation of the butterfly effect in these organizations. Let's, just give me an example of how would they be able to unleash from a state of a cocoon to a butterfly, and how would they be able to build a purpose-led organization driving exponential growth? Right. So the question is, right, how will they drive exponential growth? So here's the butterfly effect. Okay, scientifically proven. I get it. We're in a cocoon. We're kind of stuck in a solid state. We want to get a butterfly effect. What do they need to do? What do leaders need to do?
Okay, first and foremost, I'm going to apologize in case I come off very cocky because I don't run a restaurant business. I understand it is absolutely challenging. So whatever I'm saying is really just from a space of organizational psychology. Yeah, don't run it. Restaurants are very, very tough business to go into. But let's start with butterfly effect and then get into the restaurant. Butterfly effect, actually, it's all about one big question based on the Spice Girls. What is it that you really, really want? So let's look at let's look at a vegan website, for example, and what it is that they really want. So let me just share with you, because we had this conversation I thought was really cool. So let me just quickly get into this. So for restaurant business, maybe on your website or your vision, because your vision is all about what it is that you really want, you write it down. The more you write it down, the more you become it, right? So in your website or in your vision, it could be amazing vegan food. And that's probably one level of it. But if you look at the likes of Impossible Foods, which has become one of the largest, most successful vegan options in the world, what they might do would be that they might write something like this. And this is the lens. So the smallest thing that they're doing is that they are really, really using a different lens to look at what it is that they really want. And what they might say over here, and I might need a bit of help to read it out, is dedicated to transforming perceptions of vegan food by creating innovative gourmet dishes that honor animals, blah, blah, blah. But what I love about what they did was transforming perceptions. So Compassionate Cuisine actually did a whole campaign on social media around people who were eating meat, but they didn't realize the difference between a real burger and a vegan, sorry, not real burger, a meat burger and a meatless burger, and how this person transformed their perceptions of vegan food. So they really lived by the entire vision or the lens by which they wanted to transform the way people thought and behaved around vegan food. And with this, when you think about the butterfly, organizational psychology really talks about what is it that you really want. And if you sharpen up what you really want, use a much sharper lens, and obviously the language as well, that could be very helpful. And I think we have a couple of other businesses that you wanted to talk about as well, right, Sanjay? Putting me in the spot.
Yeah, but I want to. Yeah, but I want to drill in a bit more deeper, right? And talk about this idea. A lot of entrepreneurs cannot be blamed if they say, "Are yaar, vision, mission chhodne yaar, dhando kar," right?
Yeah,
Product che, bhav che, customer ne pakad, which abre mission, website, time nathi yaar, right? This is the actual thinking. But yet you see this billion-dollar organization, the language that they talk about, they're always purpose-led, they're always vision-led, they're always mission-led, right? How important now obviously from what you're showing, you're saying is very important. I come back to restaurant again. Let's assume we have a restaurant, Sanjay's Kitchen, right? A new player in the market, and I am trained in organizational psychology. Tell me what will be the difference. So are you saying that all of my frontline staff, from the waiter in the front to the cashier to the chef, everybody understands a purpose-led organization, and everybody understands what we are trying to do, and everybody is speaking the same lingo? And if so, why is this so important, and how does this get me out of the cocoon and get me to a butterfly state?
Right. Okay, so I don't think that Gujarati entrepreneurs, I mean, I agree with the language that is used, like, okay, just dhando, like, and also the typical language, what dhando are you in, right? Like, what business are you in? Diamonds, full stop, carpet, full stop, restaurant, full stop, right? And that's it. And our surnames are the same as well. There's like nothing more to that except that's who we are, that's what we do. But I do believe that, not I do believe, there are visionaries within our Gujarati community. And I think all of us have a vision as well. We might not just not have, even though we have the lens, we may not have the language for it because everybody speaks that lingo. So is it okay if I push the envelope a little bit and talk about religion? Because we've also, and you were the one who kind of brought this in, right? Because we were talking about religious organizations. That's also another organization. So I think everybody has a chance to be able to figure out what it is that they really want and how to describe it in the best way possible. So Sanjay, so you got me into trouble the other day by asking me about religious organizations and can we rethink it as well, correct?
GOPS.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Look at
GOPS.
GOPS, for example. How do you rethink GOPS? Yeah.
Okay,
How do
so
we grow GOPS with exponential growth?
lens, right? So the lens at which we see it. So it was interesting because it's not about gobs, but there was a particular interesting thing where they were looking at organizations that had a lot of dropouts. So, people were not really participating in the religious organization anymore. And so the idea came from this particular organization. So let me share with you what it would look like as well. So for Jane's, this is a website that I'd gone to. And so if you look at it, this is what one of the Jain websites had said, educate Jains. So you can see that it's very about giving you something versus, I don't know whether anyone has heard of Church of Kingdom City. It's like super hype. I'm not saying I'm joining that religious organization whatsoever, but the numbers are flowing in like insanely. So you can see here, educate Jains and non-Jains to create strong and united, vibrant Jain community. So versus, let's have a go. Connecting, equipping, and empowering you. So it's very much about the person bringing the reality of God into their own lives. So it's a very different thing. And I'll just share with you the difference now, okay? I'm not saying that we are doing right things or wrong things. I'm just saying that this is the major three ways of looking at the way that we have a lens and the way that we have language. So one part of it is like when you talk about dhando, right? Like that's feeding the ego. I'm not saying that we are egotistical. That's feeding me. I need to get money. I need to get my job done. And to be fair, most of us are in survival mode as well. I'm doing this. Why? Because we need to be in business. We need money. We need to pay for this, that. But you elevate a little bit and you see that sometimes, so for example, in the previous one, it could be eco. I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this because I'm part of an ecosystem. I want to generate wealth for the community. Whereas then you have ESO. ESO is very much like you, Sanjay Bhai. You're not beyond the community. You are here to solve problems that are all about the universe. Right? For you, you are like universal problems. Humanity is going to die if there's no cybersecurity. My children should not be in a world like this. So they are the reason. So when you go back to Gujaratis or businessmen, businesswomen, or even us as professionals, we are playing at different levels when we use different language and different lenses as well. And I hope that makes sense.
It does. So let me try to encapsulate this, and we have a very interesting comment in the chat that I want to bring in. So here's what I'm taking from what you're saying, right? You started with the word betrayal. So it explains how you bring humanity in a management. So that's the first. Second is you talk about lens, which means clarity of thought in an organization, which means every CEO that exists here should actually go back and ask themselves, okay, if I pick the frontline receptionist of my company and I pick the back end person working, I don't know, maybe in operations, and if I ask them, what's the purpose of our organization, they should be able to give us the same answer. If they don't give us the same answer, it means your lens is not very, very clear. And when you have a clarity of lens, it means that your organization is going to have very clear communication. Everybody is mission led. Everybody is purpose led. You're building athletes within your company, and this is what I'm getting out of what you're actually trying to say, right?
You're really
And
good.
yet,
Right. Yeah.
so many CEOs out there just ignore this. They just believe my job is to sell my product, but you're going to get stuck as a cocoon unless in a cocoon and not be a butterfly, because the problem is your organization is going to be entrapped with communication. because the front line and the back line don't understand your actual purpose, which is why lens is a very important thought that you should come in, right? And I would like to say, like in GOPS, for example, when Dato Bhupat Rai came to me and told me, look, I want you to lead this entire thing, his mission, his lens was very, very clear, right? We are an entrepreneurial, we're an entrepreneurial community. We're known for our business acumen, right? Business runs in our blood, and yet there's so many professionals now that are all cropping up. And I want to make sure that that GOPS supports this entire mission of betterment for the community, right? Yesterday there was a massive religious event that was done by GOPS, the charity event done by GOPS, and here is GOPS now playing its role. The lens, as far as the committee is concerned, the lens is very, very clear. We are here for the betterment of the Gujarati community. But imagine if all committee members, they don't understand that, right? Then there'll be a problem. So similarly, for our CEOs or our business owners, that's very important. Before I come to the question, there are many professionals in our community, Hetal. They are not business leaders, right? Would you agree that the takeaway from this session for them will be to go back and ask themselves, hey, I work for this company. What is the lens of my company? And if they cannot identify the lens of their company, they should probably bring it up to their management and say, we need to have, an organizational psychologist come in, help us to create the organizational behavior. How important would you say it is for a professional to raise this up to the management in building a better organization for themselves? Is it just for CEOs, or is this for everyone?
No, I think not I think it is for every human being. Organizational psychology starts with the psyche, starts with the spirit of one within the entire thing, right? So even as a professional, I think it's really important to ask yourself, what is it that you really, really want in the end that you can control, and using your lens to play a very, very different game. And that would propel you, because organizations these days, you would start paying salaries at an exponential rate. It's like Coca-Cola, right? If you go to the mama, you would pay Coca-Cola like maybe 2 ringgit. If you go to a nice restaurant, you'll pay 6 ringgit. If you go to fine dining, you pay 15, 16 ringgit. You're a Coca-Cola. You're one of the many talent in an organization. But your salary, your valuation, your promotion can be at an exponential rate. And I think each person can bring their own vision into the organization's vision and make it much better. And I think you can be a representative of that. And of course, if you bring it to your organization or your CEOs, and you bring me there as well, that would be great. But I think it starts from every single person being able to have a much clearer lens. And there are, a few things that I might want to highlight that could be relevant, whether it's business or whether it is a person. So let me just share with you these 5 little levels that you can play at in terms of your lens or in terms of the game that you're playing. There is one which would be whether it's an individual and organization. I've worked so hard, things are tough. I'm telling you it's the government, or I'm telling you it's the stars or whatever. These are the people that, your lens is making you die. The way that you look at things is making you die. Another group, and you would see this even with employees, they could be like, I'll try and do my best to hit the targets, and hopefully the money comes in, or hopefully the projects flow, or whatever. They're dreading it. They're like in the cocoon as well. Another group would be like, I'll work harder than anyone else and I'll compete. That was always the Singaporean in me, actually, and always failed as well at that, until I realized, no, man, my lens is just not clean. This is a game. This is you're in a game, you are in an ecosystem. You will die, because 95% of caterpillars will never become butterflies. Sorry to be so dire and horrible, but it's not just going to work. You are in a game. You want to win. So for me, the next level, breaking up the cocoon, is anyone, not just an organization. I understand that I'm not here to just make money. This is a game. I'm playing to perpetuate the game. And lastly, when you can really see, it doesn't matter whether you are a secretary or whether you are the CEO or whether you're a cleaner, it doesn't matter. Finally, you understand the game and you master the game that you're in. You're winning the game, and then you game the game as well. You make it harder for everyone else to be as good as you. And I think it's relevant at any level, because you yourself are like 30 trillion cells in your body, 60,000 thoughts. You are an organization in and of itself, if that makes sense.
Okay. Makes sense. Thank you very much. I'm going to call my my co-anchor, Amish Avlani. Amish, I see that in chat there are a number of questions. Love you to summarize one or two from your perspective. Please give Hetal a tough time. I'm giving her a very easy time, right? So Amish, over to you.
Hi, Hetal. Thank you so much. Uh, if you could share with us the 5 Ds as a slide later that we can shoot out to our members, I think it'll help. Because
Sure.
I'm in the bottom 2 Ds, uh, we need to get up to the 3 Ds. I have a few comments, but there's a question here. As a CEO, what are the basic boundaries I need to have for myself for the betterment of my personal health and the growth of my company? Question is from Bhavna. So, as a CEO, what are the basic boundaries one needs to have for themselves?
Mm. Oh
You
my
have
God.
seen many CEOs, so you can probably tell us how, especially when it comes to SMEs, our life, the work-life balance words does not apply because everything's all one big rojak, right? So, what really do you see as the best way to draw boundaries, or what are the basic boundaries?
Yeah. Oh, such a good question. I wish I had actually known the answer to this a long time ago. I'm still practicing. That's a great question. So, what's killing my energy, right? Or what it, sorry, the question was what, sorry,
As a CEO,
the words that
what
she
are
used
the
was really good.
what are the basic boundaries we should
Yeah,
set for ourselves?
right. So, basic boundaries reminds me of a word like trigger, right? Like when a person enters your boundary, it triggers you. So, what I've had to realize, and this was so not me as a kid, I'm still work in progress. Just try not to have those buttons that people can push. It's not like people can only push the buttons, and people can only cross those boundaries if you actually have those buttons that people can push. So when we talk about emotions, right, the boundaries really, really affect your personal health or your energy, so to speak. And the reason why we use emotion is motion of energy. The movement of your energy gets affected, and when your energy gets affected, your business gets affected as well. So I think this is a pretty cool trick. So if anybody wants to try this, you can please try this together with me on the chat function. Can you tell me 10 emotions very quickly? Just key in straight away, like 10 emotions, and we'll just do the first 10. Okay, let's go. 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 Very good. Very good. 3 so far. 4. Let's go. I need 10. Let's go. Let's go. 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 Very good. Go. 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 All right. Okay. All right. Very good. Can stop. Okay. All right. So let's count over here. Let's count. All right. You have sad. So that's negative. Happy, positive. Regret, negative. Anger, negative. Negative, negative. One, positive, positive, positive. Negative, negative, positive, negative, 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 positive. Our emotions are moving around so volatile, in such a volatile manner, right? Like energy is charged. So you got positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, and majority of it. So I think it's more 60-70% negatively charged. So the energy is telling you that you're a bit more negatively charged. And the ratio that you need to keep in for boundaries, right? The most interesting thing about energy is that it is mostly negative. Because if you are not negative and you're so positive in life, you'll just walk across the street happily away and you will get knocked down by a car, you will die. Negative emotions are designed to help you survive at the very least. So that's good for you. But now you need to redesign it and have 5-1. So the only way is now, everyone, if you can on the chat function, only positive emotions. Let's go. Only positive now. Same amount of time. You will be much slower. Just watch. It's going to get a bit slower. Let's go. Come on, guys. You can do it. You can see it's a bit slower, right? It's like a tap that is like, oh my God. Come on,
Roshiv, come on,
guys.
man. Roshiv, I'm
Come
counting on
on.
you.
Little bit more, guys, ladies. Come on, little bit more, little bit more. See, it's like so much slower, but it's there. The good thing is that it's there, but you need to practice like about 5 times more than that. So when it comes to your health, you have all the data that is telling you that is negative. You need to direct it to the way that you want, and you need to practice 5 times more. It is a mental exercise. Jainism, the best thing about it, and I mean, I'm not trying to be spiritual or whatever, is everything that they say makes a lot of sense. Your third eye or whatever it is, you need to write down what it is that you want, all the time. It has to be good things for you, but we don't. We don't. So you need to do that 5 times a day, which is why I suppose Muslims pray 5 times a day. So yeah, if you want good health, you need to write down, I want good health 5 times a day. I remember my ba used to write down Om 108 times, just Om. And the other day on the airplane, I was feeling a bit suffocated and like super stressed out. I just remembered that she had done that. And I borrowed a paper from the airline lady and I had a pen. And I just wrote Om 108 times. Just suddenly, my grandmother got in my head. God her bless her soul, she's passed away. I wrote down Om 108 times. I felt so good. The boundaries are actually within us, right? Like it's manifested by the people around you. It's actually within you. They just trigger something that is within you. Sorry, I know it's
No problem.
supposed to be
So we have
shorter.
3 minutes, Hetal. 3 minutes. Amish, any other rapid fire questions before
I,
before I
I
ask
wish
her?
I wish it could be more than 3 minutes. Heather, you can find the time for us, please, because there's a lot of questions. But just one here. I'm just
Sure.
compressing this question. Miss Vishwarupada says, as a consultant, she has observed that many a recurring pattern in higher level management, C-suite and above, that want to hire yes men, people who just yes men, although it is hurting the entire organization. As an organizational psychologist, she's asking you, can you please provide a practical suggestion on how do I play this game?
Wow. I love that you want to
Oh
play
my
a
God.
game. That's to begin with, I'm glad that I mean, maybe it sounds bad that you're playing a game, but it has to be gamed to win, right? You're not manipulating it, it has to be game to win. So first and foremost, do you like people that don't do what you want and don't give you what you want and don't like you? No.
Nope.
It goes against every survival instinct. It triggers your fear of not being good enough. It triggers your fear of being rejected. It triggers your fear of failure. So you are a triggering trigger for that person. You are encroaching on that person's boundaries. You are like exposing all of their insecurities. So my recommendation to anyone is, I think if you are playing to win, always help the person to win first. You help the person to win because no CEO is so bad and so dumb and sorry, I probably shouldn't be using those words, that they would be hired to be at that level, right? There would be some goodness in them. Of course, these days, yes. I mean, back in the day, maybe you have a lot of corrupt ones, but these days, public listed companies, you would be caught out, you'd be whistleblowed, and we are very much involved in designing things for whistleblowing as well to weed out a lot of toxicity. But these days, if you practice sexual harassment, threats of violence, actual violence, bullying, we had a case of somebody in an organization putting a snout of a pig on top of the business leader's picture and putting up on social media saying that guy is a pig and rallying a whole bunch of people to bring that guy down. So I think maybe 1% of CEOs probably like that. Majority are in it to try to be good. So my recommendation would be, number one, agree with the best intention of that person, reducing your assumptions, and then play to make that person win more. So help that person to win in whatever game you agree with first and foremost, and then find a way to make that person win a little bit more, because any drama that you try to create is just going to be extremely exhausting. And you won't be working, you'll be in politics for the rest of your life. I kind of learned that the hard way many a times as well.
I think that's a great answer.
Mm.
And Miss Vishwarupa Das herself has said, good answer, thank you. Okay, let's take the last question, it's shared twice. So Mr. Ashwin has said there are 4 types of organizational people. A plus, self-motivated, self-driven, take on responsibilities and initiative to solve their own problems. Often their bosses may not notice the problems as they would solve it beforehand. A minus, same as above, but only difference is this group will notify the seniors and superiors, but they will also come up with possible solutions for their approval. B, this group survive on published and detailed procedures and processes and will come to you or their superiors in case of any deviation for solutions. C, this group actually creates most of the problems. They're not problem solvers, nor are they good at following procedures. So there was A minus, B, C. As an organizational psychologist, how does a corporation maintain a balance in the above matrix in creating their organizational teams as they expand?
Wow. Okay,
If
so
you go to your chat, you could probably if you want to read what A
yeah,
plus,
I'm
A
just
minus,
reading
B,
this.
C.
Thanks a lot. Jeez, my gosh, you could write a book on this. Excellent stuff. So the question is, how do you maintain a balance? I wouldn't have a balance. I would have a direction. Um, uh, what is it that you really want? So I'll give you an example of Netflix. I know most of you might say we are not Netflix, so Hetal, please stop talking about things that we are not. But I think it starts with who you are and what you represent, and therefore all of your practices come into place as well, right? So if you're not performing, we call it hire hard and fire yourself easily. So in our organization or in organizations that we work with, we try to tell people we'll give you a 3-month salary for you to leave. Like we will give you 3 months salary for you to exit yourself, and you take that money and you leave as well. And we will make sure that the system is designed to move in a direction rather than a balance. And we very often, I mean, at least in my organization and the organizations that we work with, we tell people to fire themselves, and we pay them out as much as we can, because the problem was that we probably hired wrongly. We didn't do a good job. We take as much responsibility in this particular process. And with regards to A minus, A minus, B minus, A minus, B minus, I think everyone is a combination of A plus, A minus, and B minus. I think everyone's a combination of it. So we try and raise the person to the direction that you want constantly. So I'll give you an example of this very quickly. So if you have someone who's a bit more B minus, they probably want to be at least a B. So what we do is that it's like a husband and wife, right? Like the wife tells the husband, you're not a good husband. And then the husband goes, what do you want me to do? And then buys a rose bouquet for the wife. And then the wife takes the rose bouquet and throws it away. And then the husband says, okay, what do you want me to do? I'll get you croissants. And the wife takes a croissant and throws it away as well. So we call it rose bouquet effect. Both are right, both are trying, both are wrong because nobody knows. Because the question is never asked, actually, what do you really, really want? So the employee or the subordinate or team member needs to ask the other person, what do you really, really want in the end that I can control, that if I do, will raise me up to A plus? And the other person needs to be crystal clear as well, and they need to check in with that. But these conversations actually never happen. I don't think a husband over here has ever asked the wife, tell me what it is that you really, really want in the end that I can control. And if I do that, will I be a good husband? And vice versa, because it's just not normal conversation that we have, right? They probably think like, my God, there's something wrong with you today. But it has to be set up, and we call it love letter actually, because you need to write it down. You cannot talk, and it needs to be done in a letter there is a format to it. You need to write this down, and you need to check in all the time. But yeah, toxic people out straight away, and pay them to let themselves out as well, because otherwise it's very expensive.
Thank you very much. Thank you for those comments, Hetal. You know, we are really out of time, and we have exceeded our allocated time. But this is a very deep topic. So I'm just going to summarize and correct me where I go wrong, right? The first thing that we got out of this 1 hour session is remember the employment cycle. You don't ever want to have any member of your team, whether present or whether one that's on the way out, whether it is for termination of employment or reduction of workforce, to ever feel the word betrayal. That's going to come bite you. So do everything you can, improve communication, improve appraisal, ensure that your entire process is done in a humane manner, because you want to ensure the word betrayal doesn't come in. And if you can do that, then that's going to be one step forward in you building your organization. The second thing that you brought up was the idea of lens. Have a very crystal clear lens. You're selling a carpet. Okay, what's the purpose, right, of your organization? What is it that you want to bring? Make sure your front end to your back end to your center workforce to your sales to your marketing, your operation, HR, everybody understands your entire lens and what do you really want, what's your organization there for. If you can actually get that, that's going to be another reason why your organization is going to get out of the cocoon and move towards the butterfly, and actually get there. And the third that we really couldn't get in, but you and I talked about, was really the concept of building, thinking of your organization as really a team. and you're really building athletes around your team, and making sure that you actually build the team. Unfortunately, we didn't have time to get into that, but these are the three large principles that we can apply as leaders in making sure that our organization moves forward. Last comments, Hetal, anything I missed out? Anything you want to add before we bring the session to an end? It's been a brilliant session.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I think last comment, since we are a group of Jains coming together, I think Jainism, or the principles of Jainism, and at least meditation or breathing, is so profound. It is so unbelievably profound, and we are so lucky to be Jains. Just our breath, right, is the thing that we need to remain most loyal to. Like, we really need to understand this thing called the breath, and through this we can achieve our butterfly. So as small as our breath, if we learn how to pay attention and close our eyes and really feel the 30 trillion cells, the 60,000 thoughts, you can really maximize all of your potential just by staying a little bit in that zone for a little while. And I mean, I think that just the last sentence, we're very lucky to be Jains.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. I think that's it for this time. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for giving us support. We are 10 minutes over time. Hetal, thank you so much on behalf of the entire Gujarati Association, Wilayah Persekutuan Selangor, and the management team. We applaud you for the great job you're doing, and thank you very much for spending your precious hour with us. We've had a brilliant time talking to you, Amish, me, Ketan. Enjoyed grilling you all that we can, and we've gotten a lot out of the session. So to all of the attendees, is one final thought. The management committee always looks for interesting personalities to interview. If you have nominations of people that you think should be interviewed, please bring it out to me, bring it out to Amish, bring it out to Nitesh, bring it out to Divesh Kamani, right? All of us are part of the committee that are trying to bring in interesting speakers, interesting topics. We welcome you to nominate people to us, and we will evaluate, and if we find a topic suitable, we'll bring them to you. With that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I'm Sanjay Bhavisi, checking out on behalf of the GOPS team. Thank you. Have a good night and wonderful week ahead. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Sanjay bhai, I think I'm getting messages that we need a part 2 with Miss Hetal Doshi. So we hope
You
we
have to
can find
join
something.
her. You have to join her Jain church in Bintulu before we do part 2. Hetal will get you back soon, and we'll carry on.
You're most welcome. Thanks a lot for having me.
All right. Thank you, folks.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye.